Heidi ho, neighbors, and welcome to This Week I'm Learning, episode 16, the podcast where the topics are lightly researched and the researchers may or may not be wearing pants. Today is September 24th of 2020, and for the love of whatever deity you believe in, whoever is still singing Baby Shark, please stop. We've all come to the conclusion here at TWIL. No, that song is secretly the opening stanza of the ritual that opens up the hellscape. That's the only logical explanation I have for 2020 being as totally fucked up as it has been.
But you have to
I'm your host.
Every time you wash your hands.
No. Happy birthday is better. Or just like the first couple lines of,
What, Lamb
Metallica
Chop?
Enter Sandman.
The song that never ends? Because I will take Baby Shark over that any day.
No. There was a bathroom that I was in around the resort. I won't say where. That, for their hand washing sign had Baby Shark, and it was stuck in my head all day.
That's what my work has.
I've got stories about work, but I won't take this down the rabbit hole yet.
Okay. Well, I am your host, Brandon Vader. Joined next to me is Charlie Stifler, also known as Mjolnir. Down below me is Seeker? Oh. Is Cody Stratman, also known as Psychonitrous. That would mean that direction is Seeker, also known as
Damn it, I knew
Colton
that.
Roper. Yeah.
What's up, y'all?
You got it right last week, so you had to miss it this week.
Yeah.
It's all right.
It's okay. One of these days I'll get it, and then something will change, and then we'll be back to where
Nothing but utter professionalism.
Yep. What else would you expect from people not wearing pants? So, should be interesting this week. Colton is going to tell us about goddamn Gundams in this goddamn world with, is that 4? Yes, that's 4 exclamation points after that.
It's super fucking exciting. So,
I'm interested.
I think I have seen memes of this, and I haven't bothered to actually do any research on it.
It's the best thing of 2020 so far.
Okay.
Cody is going to explain, tell us about sold-out flights that go to nowhere and aviation food. Related, perhaps?
Not at all. Maybe.
Oh, well.
It's creative ways of getting money. And Charlie is going to tell us that hydrogen equals mountains with a caret 2, or H equals MT to the power of 2 squared.
Math?
Yep.
We're going to do math.
He's going to tell us about math.
I would like to give 5 points in a golf clap for getting the first letter of that equation correct. And after that, Dracanis will be telling us that space travelers will now experience more density, additional color, and a higher likelihood of death.
Nice.
Ooh, high resolution death, eh?
Yes.
Sounds like
Ooh.
Doom.
Nice.
Yes.
Cheers.
Well, Colton, tell us about these goddamn Gundams. Tell us
all about them. So, just gonna be a little serious here for a little bit, guys.
Oh.
We're gonna talk about giant robots.
Yeah.
So question: do you guys enjoy the Gundam anime series or the movie Pacific Rim? Anything like that?
Never seen the
I
anime.
have
Kaiju.
I have only ever played one Gundam game. It was very much like a Street Fighter kind of Gundam game. I've never watched a single episode of any anime that had a Gundam in it, and I love Pacific Rim.
I could care less about Pacific Rim. I didn't enjoy it. I watched a little bit of, like, I can't remember if it was like Gundam or Macross, like after school on Cartoon Network. I didn't really enjoy that anime trope until I found Duel Parallel Trouble, And that kind of made me go, maybe this mech thing could be okay.
Well, I mean, Gundam is the series that launched the mech anime series. If you have any interest in any of those animes, you can thank Gundam for it. But on a side note, have you guys ever wanted to actually pilot one of those robots in real life?
Oh, yeah.
Duh.
At the very least. Maybe not a
Absolutely
Gundam,
duh.
but one of the freaking mechs at the very least.
Yes. Yes.
Sweet.
I've always wanted, though I'll go BattleTech with that instead of Gundam.
It still applies. So, we can add full-size robots to our 2020 bingo card because Japan has actually built one of these behemoths. And get this, it actually works. I fucking know. God, I love it so much.
It better not have AI. That's all I ask.
So, I'm
better not
curious,
have
is
fucking
this
AI.
from the James May, Our Man in Japan TV show that's on Netflix?
I don't think so.
But
Because I don't know what that is.
Nerf balls.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So, a little bit of history. The Gundam Global Challenge project was initiated in 2014 with the goal of creating a full-size, moving, keyword moving, giant robot based on the Mobile Suit Gundam anime series, which began in 1979. Specifically, they built the RX-78 Mobile Suit Gundam, which is the titular Gundam with the white, yellow, blue, and the horns and the head. Come on, everyone. You know what it is. Come on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Basically, they wanted to build it in time to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the series. So, last year, 2019, but fortunately, they got a little bit behind. Officially, the robot was actually completed on July 29th of this year that shall never end. It weighs a massive 55,000 pounds, or 25 metric tons, if you want to go that way. And it is a massive 18 meters high, or 59 freedom units for us Americans. So, it's pretty damn big. It's fucking massive. It's created with from over 200 pieces of steel and reinforced carbon fiber. And I'm guessing a series of super powerful hydraulics. They don't really go into that, but a lot of. I mean, this is a 6-year project at this point, so it's who knows. Remember, it is a fully usable robot, not a statue. It is remote controlled, so unfortunately, you can't actually get into the thing and actually pilot it. That's probably that's the next variant, I'm sure. And it actually has over 25 points of movement. Actually, a video surfaced on Twitter recently, posted by the French anime website Katsuka, of all places, which is only run by one guy. So, yeah, they broke the story, apparently. The robot was seen moving its arms, legs, torso, articulating its fingers, and at one point, actually even kneeling down. So it's pretty damn impressive, honestly, the entire thing. If you wanted to actually see the mech in person, you would need to travel to Yokohama, Japan, which is about 20 miles southwest of Tokyo. The giant automaton will be at the Gundam Factory, which is an experience that includes robots, labs, movie theaters, scaffolding to the giant robot, restaurants. Basically, it's an entire love letter to the Gundam series. And being on the pier of that city, it's going to be the first thing that a lot of people see when they come to port. So that's Japan for you, embracing who they are. I love it.
A much better Statue of Liberty.
Oh, it's freaking awesome. However, you will have to wait a bit due to the fact, of course, the goddamn coronavirus. It was all supposed to launch in October, but according to the official website for the Gundam Factory, they hope to have it open within the year. So, if you guys get a chance, check it out. Check out the video. It's pretty cool. It's not obviously super fast in terms of how quick it moves, but yeah, it moves. It torso turns, articulates, as I said. It's a pretty impressive bit of engineering, and actually gives a little bit of hope for the future that maybe we'll be fighting our wars in mechs instead of in person. So, yeah.
25 tons. It's smaller than an Irby. Smaller than an urban mech.
From the Mech Warrior series.
Probably faster, though.
Probably faster.
I love that game.
Does it have an AC-20 on it?
I think they're working on it. I do know that, I guess in Japan there's a whole ritual of like blessing the last bit of a house. When you're actually building a house or a building, you actually bless the last little bit. And I guess they actually did that on the actual head of this thing. So it's a blessed Gundam robot.
So you could live in it if it wasn't remote controlled.
I don't know. Like I said, there's going to be scaffolding on the side, so people will be able to go up and basically touch the machine. It looks pretty freaking awesome, to the point where if the coronavirus ever actually ends and if Americans are ever allowed to travel the world again, I want to go and see it one day. So put that on the list, Cody. And everyone else. Everyone, fucking go and see it. It's pretty fucking cool. That is what we should be putting our money into. Not cancer research, not space travel, just fucking giant mobile suit Gundams.
So, I have something to add to this. You need to watch the series James May, Our Man in Japan, because there is an episode where he actually, in Japan, of course that's the name of the show, I think it's north of Tokyo, he actually goes into a mech. I don't know what it's modeled after. And there were two mechs, and the mech can't actually exit the building that was created in because it's so big, but he could get into it, and they shot oversized Nerf balls at each other with the mech.
God, I love Japan.
And it moved so like fun. It was slower than an urban mech, though.
It's a Mark 1. They'll figure it out. 2050 that'll just be how they get around, is in giant suits. So here's hoping.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. But in a little bit more of a, I guess, current events situation, Cody, tell us about these magical nowhere flights.
So some of them go nowhere, and some of them go somewhere to take you back to where you are. So airlines are being creative right now, because they kind of have to be. And one of those creative endeavors is actually selling basically scenic flights. So Qantas sold a flight that sold out, their best-selling flight ever, sold out in 10 minutes. And it basically departs from Sydney, flies around, and then goes back to Sydney. It's several hours long, and basically it's a giant sightseeing tour.
It's a love letter to the people who masochistically love being shoved in to economy-size seats.
Maybe. But but I mean, like, they've got to fly the planes anyway to keep up maintenance, planes sitting on the ground unless you prep them to do that for long periods of time is not good. You actually want to fly them every once in a while. So basically they're doing these flights and they're going, hey, rather than flying them around with no passengers in them, why don't we fly them around with passengers in them? So they've been doing that, at least with this, and because of how popular that was, they're planning on doing it again at some point. But they're not the only ones. So actually, you had the one that started in Taiwan. The plane didn't even take off. It was a flight that sold out. They actually had to have a lottery to pick from the people that would go on this, that basically they got to tour the new lounge at the airport and then go on the airplane, sit for a little bit, and then leave the airplane.
God damn, we are so hurting for entertainment at this point.
Yeah, then there was a sightseeing. So there's also a sightseeing flight from, I want to say it was from Japan, or maybe it might have actually been another one from Taiwan that just flew around for a while. Again, departing and leaving from the same place, or departing and arriving at the same place. And then Singapore Airlines is planning that. And, the more I've been thinking about it, there's a podcast that I listen to that's based out of Singapore called Coconuts. And as I listened to them, I realized, one of the worst places to be stuck during this, aside from the U.S., of course, would be Singapore, because you're not allowed to leave. You can't go to any other country. And so you're stuck in one of the smallest countries. It's not
a city country.
Yeah, it's not like, at least, for me, if I really wanted to, I could get on a plane and fly from Alaska to another state, or even, Anchorage to Fairbanks or something crazy like that. Singapore, you're not flying from Singapore to Singapore until now, or until whenever that flight lifts off. But it totally makes sense for that. Then the other part of this is the food aspect that I've been following for the last few months that's been kind of entertaining. So there was actually, I forget the name of the airline, but there was an airline in Canada that started selling their meals just as regular take-home meals. So you could, but apparently they were so popular that they were making a decent profit because the food was actually pretty good. And there's kind of some science behind this. So when you're up in the air, your taste buds they don't work at the full saturation levels. So that's one of the reasons why airline food a lot of times tastes bland and crappy. So they have to really pump up the flavor in that food to make it taste, not quite as bland.
Up the jam.
Pump it up.
I will start singing.
The goggles, they do not sing.
Baby Shark. Anyway.
Hey.
But again, this isn't the only airline that was doing that. So the people that made the first class peanuts for American Airlines were like, hey, we've been producing these peanuts and we really are actually just mixed nuts and we need to sell them. So they started selling them by the pound. And they're actually making a decent amount of money selling those airline nuts by the pound. So it's interesting. So then you've got Thai Airways in Thailand, and they've had some issues and restructuring and stuff, and they're kind of being propped up by the state at this point. But they've actually started doing their own thing. They've been starting selling the airline food on Sealoam Road. Basically, I don't know if it's part advertising stunt, part just selling food, but they've got like pilots and flight attendants actually selling the food, like fresh cooked food. I mean, street food's a huge thing there. And their food's pretty good. I've flown them before. So, I mean, it's really interesting. It's good to see, like, these guys being really creative and just trying something new. And who knows, we could get some interesting food out of it. And there's a few other airlines that are doing the same thing, too. I think it was Air Asia. I might be wrong on this, but I want to say it was Air Asia that was also selling some food, too. So, it's just entertaining to me. And also a reason why I think once we have a vaccine, I keep looking at the airline stock and going, this is showing me that there's pent up demand. Like if Qantas sells out a flight in 10 minutes that goes from Sydney to Sydney, there's definitely something going on here. But
Or do you think it's more along the lines of it's like not a joke, but it's
a novel thing.
A novel thing that's. I mean, are there any plans to keep doing this kind of thing after?
I don't know. I mean, my
obviously
speculation
there's profit to be made.
Yeah, but I think the food part of this is going to be the novelty that wears off. And I think most of this, like after people can fly again, is probably going to be something that wears off. Maybe the mixed nuts. I could see the mixed nuts being sold well after the pandemic. But the rest of it...
I'd take a pound of nuts.
Wow.
Wow. Adults.
Terrible joke. Yeah. But seriously.
How much...
Like, the airline snack food? Like, It's always super salty. You know me.
Let me see if I can find where I had that.
Dig myself a little deeper here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember how much it was actually for that.
How long of a flight?
So the Singapore one, I think they were talking about 3 hours. The Sydney one, I want to say it was 5 hours. The one, also another part of this is there's actually a new airline in Japan, and you don't go anywhere. Instead,
It's based on Gundams.
No, but it's just as fictional.
Damn
So
it.
instead, you get boarded onto a fake aircraft, take your business class seat, and then put on your VR headset, and you travel around the world via VR. And they'll even serve you a meal too.
Eating with a VR helmet on.
Well, I imagine that those are going to be two different things. Although there are very unique restaurants. Like there's this restaurant in Barcelona where you like eat without seeing your food half the time. There was actually another one called Dine in the Dark in Bangkok that I haven't been to yet. But it's so, I mean, sensory deprivation on food is definitely a thing. Because, you know, if you deprive one sense, other ones supposedly get higher. Who
Enhanced,
knows?
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're telling me in Japan there's a restaurant that is, and it's a VR thing where you literally are just sitting in a damn seat of an airplane.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, again, we are so starved for entertainment at this point. Jesus.
Well, I mean, Japan, between Gundams and, fake travel. I
Obviously,
mean,
there's a market for it. I mean, shit.
yeah, I totally believe that. I am almost to that point. Like, if they had some of these things here, I would probably do it. Depending on cost. Yeah, depending on cost. But, Anyway, Charlie, why don't you tell us about chemical formulas, maybe?
So when I was thinking of my tagline today, I really was trying to figure out how to mix hydrogen and mass transportation into a catch line. So I'll just come out. It was hydrogen equals mass transit squared, because the hydrogen fuel cell car concept has been around for a while, and they're still playing around with it. It's a good idea, but it relies on a individual consumer level adaptability and safety model that would be much easier adopted by highly trained people who already deal with dangerous chemicals like the aircraft industry. And about 3 days ago, Airbus announced their Zero E line of aircraft that they are shooting for multiple platforms to be hydrogen-powered aircraft. And just so they're coming at it with 3 different approaches. They're doing a turboprop, so think Otter, a turbofan, your standard Airbus that everyone thinks of when they think of a
Like
commuter aircraft.
A220, A320 sized.
Right. Something like that.
Then the
2
Maverick.
engine, definitely. And then they are actually developing something called a blended wing body, which reminds me of much more of drone, like UCAV and UAV kind of drone technology, where it's a unibody without a real pronounced rudder fin. There's been definitely different variations on a blended wing body type aircraft. But what's interesting about it is it would be up to 200 passengers in a blended body. Like, it's baffling to me. But so some technical specs is their turbofan would be able to go about 2,000 nautical miles. So plus or minus about the normal range of a turbo fan aircraft at this point. 200 passengers, pretty standard. cruise at 511 miles an hour. Again, pretty standard. Their turboprop 1,000 up to 100 passengers and 380 miles per hour. And their blended wing body would have 2,000 mile nautical mile range, up to 200 passengers, and it will also fly at about 511. So really changing the complete body and style of an aircraft to accommodate basically the same thing as modern technology can. So I actually see it as a bigger hurdle. But what's interesting about that particular model is it uses a hybrid engine, and it's 8 micro turbo fans on top of the main fuselage. So that's going to be interesting. If you just Google, Airbus 0E, yeah, it's going to be a spicy looking aircraft. I'm going to really be curious about the dynamics of flight, and there's been a lot of rudderless aircraft made, and they're almost all military, and they all have stabilization problems.
Interesting.
So
this is actually the second kind of odd aircraft design. The other one is like the flying V that KLM is working on too with them.
Yeah, the bullet wing.
That I found fascinating. Now, the inside of this is supposed to be really spacious, but I have my sort of concerns over lack of window seats because it's so wide. That's going to... I mean, these are like my minor stupid things. And also when they say that it's going to be spacious compared to what the actual airline producer says, like Airbus or Boeing, and what each
the
airline
will do.
does. Like, you're not supposed to fly a 787 9 wide in the back or a 777 10 wide in the back, but airlines go, hey, we can jam that extra seat right in there.
Yep.
So the other problem that I kind of see with the design is cargo hold access.
And so this is actually a big point in this, is that unlike modern kerosene jet fuel powered aircraft, the fuel will not be in the wings. It will have to be in the fuselage because it is cryogenically frozen. It is refrigerated fuel. So
that's interesting.
It has to be at minus 253 degrees centigrade in order to maintain a liquid state. If you don't keep it in a liquid state, then you have a expanding container problem. So if you don't keep it cool, kaboom is right. What's interesting is, per pound of fuel, the hydrogen weighs 1/3 as much as the kerosene, but you can store it 4 times as dense. So they have to be very cautious about how the right balance and equation. So
distributing it, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that they're trying to figure out what the perfect balance is right now. With it being in a fuselage, you're going to have to increase diameter of the fuselage. You're going to have to increase the length of the fuselage in order to maintain capacity for the passengers. That increases drag. Now, granted, who cares about fuel efficiency when your byproduct is water? If they can develop a cheap and cost-effective way to create hydrogen, I think they might actually have a fuel-stable, economically viable, not war-dependent for price fuel source, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, they've got a lot of math to figure it out still.
Especially...
They're looking for a real flight demonstrator, so a flying aircraft that has all of the properties they're talking about by 2025, and then 2035 entering into service.
Damn.
That's really ambitious on the demonstrator end.
Especially with the logistics issues of requiring each, when you fly to an airport, you need them to have the fuel supply for you, which is going to be a completely
I'm
different
going to say, like, rural airports are going to have a big problem. Big airports shouldn't be a big deal.
Well,
but...
I mean, we're still talking about aircraft with capacity in the 100 to 200 range. I don't expect these to be your, Gunnison hoppers, your small airport commuter planes. They'll keep the regular fuel planes for those because the infrastructure is just not going to be there.
Well, for the turboprop, I could see that as being some of these small airport hoppers. Because 100 passenger, I mean, that's close to what flies into Gunnison.
We normally get 66 seaters.
Yeah, so I could see that serving that area. I almost think that smaller airports might be able to adapt better to it than larger airports that are going to have to completely revitalize how they transport fuel. Like at a smaller airport, you have a storage tank and a truck, and you basically buy new storage tank, buy new truck. With a larger airport, you have a lot more items.
It's infrastructure.
I actually think it's going to be a little bit different than that. I actually envision that the airports, seeing that they could buy it or make it, the solar powered fuel generating market is more money in their pocket. And if think about
the airport,
the implications on an apocalyptic scale. Like if everyone could make their own fuel, that makes us apocalypse proof for at least vehicles and power generation on like a micro scale. Like say, everywhere except for Gunnison gets nuked, the airport can make fuel, then we can have vehicles that operate in that area. That makes civilization a possible thing. Way down the rabbit hole in that tangent, by the way.
And then along with our battle mechs that we've imported from Japan,
just make sure they're hydrogen powered.
They have to be hydrogen powered.
Or electric.
Cold fusion. It's fine. They can do that.
So the question I have is why? I mean, pretty obvious why, but why is Airbus initiating this program now? Is it to deal with a climate issue? Is it to deal with the inevitable price war that's going to happen with fuel? Is it just
one of those
trying to be a forward-thinking company at this point?
I think it's kind of an all of the above kind of premise that they see the writing on the wall. Fossil fuel is not going to be around forever, and even synthetic fossil fuel is not sustainable. It is a very popular topic, and if they want their stock prices to go up, they need to be showing and illustrating to the very green-minded economy right now that they're part of the solution and not part of the anchor.
It's interesting and forward-thinking of them to be doing this, especially right now with the fuel war going on at the moment, because fuel is, if you've been to a gas pump recently, it's actually extremely cheap right now. It's like the one thing that's actually saving most of the airlines is that they don't have to worry about fuel for their aircraft to a certain extent. That's why they're able to pivot so easily. So it's interesting, and I think Airbus is really forward thinking in this aspect too. And these are aircraft that are going to be more efficient than even the Airbus A350 or the Boeing 787 too. So
Well, I'm also wondering, industry-wide, if Airbus obviously is taking the lead on this, is Boeing going to come up with a program? Is militaries around the world? I mean, the U.S. is the Air Force, U.S. Air Force going to start coming with the plan?
It's different with the military because they don't care as much. They care more about performance than about fuel efficiency. Like, you don't really care if your, F-22 can get to a certain range and back. You don't care how much it costs to do that. You care that it can do that and do it quick.
They're Hercules and they're big ass cargo planes. It might be interesting.
That's a good point. That's a fair
Some
point.
sort of hybrid system again that can do both. I mean, I don't know.
And
well, they have been testing a hydrogen fuel cell truck, Chevy Colorado ZR2.
I mean, going back what Charlie said, if you can make fuel in the desert or wherever war area you're in, then you don't have to worry about transporting it to that area. You can just make it on site. That's more efficient. And obviously supply lines can't be cut necessarily. It kind of makes sense from a war standpoint as well, from a fuel production standpoint.
Yeah, but economies of scale, I have no idea what level of technology we're at right now with hydrogen production. That's not something I researched for tonight, unfortunately. I might do that next week. Who knows? But honestly, like it would take a lot of energy or like hydrogen fuel production to even take like a single company of tanks. Like that's a platoon of tanks is 4. A company is 8. To fill their 1,000-gallon tanks that go 100 miles, every 100 miles, that's a lot of infrastructure to pick up and carry with you. I'm very interested to see what the military can do.
Plus, like you were talking about too, the storage challenges regarding this. I think this is going to be something interesting to follow, and I imagine Boeing will also pivot on this because poor Boeing, they kind of need to.
They need to respond in some way.
They need to get some of their aircraft just flying again.
Well, the 737 MAX is EASA has an Transport Canada have done their certification flights, so.
Only like 80 other federal aviation agencies to.
I still won't get on one for a while.
I won't have a problem with one, but yeah. I have different qualms with it. I think it will be a very uncomfortable aircraft to fly because they're trying to jam as many seats as they can into them. So it's my preference for Airbus is because an A320 is like half a foot wider than a 737, which isn't enough room to add a 7th seat in the aisle, but is wide enough to be more comfortable.
Well, that's kind of another interesting caveat with the hydrogen-powered plane, because if they can figure out the fuel efficiency problem, they can, and obviously cheapen fuel prices for them. Theoretically, they wouldn't necessarily have to jam 10 wide passengers in these planes. They still will push it a little bit, but if fuel being the number one cost to an airline, it all of a sudden drops. And demand is still high, theoretically, comfort and other things like that will become a bigger issue and more important to the consumer.
To an extent, we might get to a point where if enough people are traveling, that we get to the olden days that created the want for like the A3 or 80 and stuff like that, because airports might get slot restricted. But so it depends. And it depends on how the low-cost airlines utilize this too for point-to-point travel versus hub-to-hub travel. So it's definitely going to be interesting, and this is part of the propagation of the whole hydrogen fuel system and how far that reaches. And it's kind of like the Tesla. If you can drive a Tesla down the Alcan, then somebody in Alaska can get a Tesla. But if you can't do that, then it's not going to be as popular. So it's basically logistics.
I would say if there's a demand for it in the industry will respond to it. And the interesting problem, along with all the other technologies we've talked about on this show in the past, is it's the transition period. Because they're not just gonna, if Airbus creates this technology and has a workable product by 2035, that's not going to mean like, okay, we're done with fuel or fossil fuel planes. It's time to rebuild everything and shut everything down. That's not how it's going to work. They're probably going to start with kind of like the Tesla, where they put certain charging stations in high high population areas, they'll probably start with the high frequency routes.
Yeah.
I would,
I could see
and
it
again,
on
that kind of
both
leads
sides
me
of
to
the
believe,
Atlantic.
and that's leads me to believe they'd probably go with the LaGuardia, London, Chicago, Atlanta. Yeah, that's where they would start because they have the space and also the manpower to have to deal with two separate fuel sources at the same time while the transition happens. Whereas a small rural airport, might have a bigger, maybe not a huge one, because again, it's simpler at a rural level. But they're gonna have an issue of dealing with two separate fuel sources. Logistics wise, it's still a pain in the ass.
And there is a point to be made of economy of scale. So if you have enough room, like, hey, DIA has tons of room, so you could have a fuel manufacturing facility at DIA easy, just because of the space. Although DIA gets hot, so but they've got
Whereas
that underground
Los
bunker.
Angeles, Los Angeles has kind of an issue, or LAX has an issue because, well, they're pretty much full in terms of their usage of the land.
Yeah,
so it's kind of it's gonna be one of those interesting
hydrogen
things to see what happens.
We could do what we did with the servers, last week. Have hydrogen production under the sea because there's a ton of airports that are actually built on reclaimed land. So you do that, you have a source of hydrogen, the ocean, and you have a cooling system. Well, it doesn't get as cold, but who knows? I'm talking out of my ass now, so.
Well, and the final point I would add, kind of going back what Charlie said, with production at, I guess at the airport level, that's free money for the airport. All these airlines would be, instead of paying the fuel companies or whoever they're paying, they'd be paying the airports directly for fuel, which I guess they do now. But there's more profit for the airports. Therefore, there's more money to continue to rebuild or build the infrastructure up. So it's one of those things of, it just needs to get going, and then eventually it's self-sustaining.
I wonder if we're gonna see a rise in private airports because of this. You could actually make money being an airport rather than having the government prop up your airport. So that's actually kind of a fascinating idea too. So who knows? I almost stole your topic for tonight, Charlie, and then kind of at the last minute I decided to go with mine. So I'm glad we did this. This is, yeah.
All right, Brandon. Explosions in space with color.
Hopefully not because of hydrogen.
I didn't say explosions. I said
death in space.
Density, color, and a higher likelihood of death. So I've talked once before on this podcast, actually back in July, about No Man's Sky, when they released their last update called Desolation. Well, I'm back again with some more news from Hello Games. No Man's Sky just hit 3.0 yesterday with their latest update called Origins. For quite a while, fellow interlopers have craved more diversity to solar systems, planets, biomes, and animals. This update looks to have taken care of that. The update adds in rare system types of binary and trinary star systems. Existing solar systems have also birthed new planets, meaning there's now millions of additional untouched worlds. Though, I mean, let's be honest, there was already a shit ton of planets, and we weren't close to getting all of them. There's new flora, fauna, atmospheric conditions, including massively improved cloud technology. Terrain generation has been tweaked to make mountains up to 4 times higher and give planets a more vast, sweeping terrain. There's also more diversity in plants and alien lives, and they've included marshes and increased color variety. There's also been some UI tweaks to bring more cohesion between different menus and inventories, and there's now firestorms and volcanoes. And unlike the firestorms of old, there's actually now fire.
It's not just this feels really hot and dusty, and then extra hot.
I was always saying the game could use more fire.
Oh yeah, there is fire now. There's also tornadoes, lightning storms, and gravitational anomalies.
Okay, that sounds
Uh, yeah. There's also new building types, planetary NPC encounters. Apparently, some of the random NPC encounters are black market traders willing to deal in contraband for pugnium. You can now also upgrade your multi-tool by its class and capacity, like we can ships and freighters. There's insect life, wild robots, and sandworms.
They got
And-
to it
Awesome.
before
Are you saying
Star
Tremors,
Citizen.
Tremors, or Dune?
Dune.
Well, I was gonna say
Those are
I
two
can't
different
wait
things.
I can't wait to ask the first sandworm I meet. Broke into the wrong goddamn rec room, didn't you, you bastards? Bonus points, bonus internet points if you actually know where that quote came from, what movie that was.
Comment down
Not
below.
only do I know exactly
Comment.
what movie it's from, but I can name both actors in that scene.
Excellent. Yeah,
Charlie
comment.
gets internet points.
Comment for extra internet points. Yeah, and although I haven't gotten to play the newest update because it did just come out yesterday, I'm excited to give it a go. There's like pages of patch notes and what they've changed and added, and I did not feel like trying to list them all. So that's probably about a third. That's like the most exciting third through my quick scroll through. And yeah, I think after this podcast, that's where I'm headed, is to No Man's Sky for a little bit, because I mean that was kind of the thing, is like we were all playing it, and like I got that mining facility up and was just like rolling in credits, but it was kind of like, okay, well great, now I've got all this money and I've broken the game because all of the exploration really isn't all that much fun right now.
Yeah,
And now it should be.
it does sound interesting, but it sounds like, I'm gonna be blatantly honest, it sounds like it's gonna hold my attention for about 10 hours, and then the way that some of these games do procedural generation, that new stuff becomes boring rather quickly, and that's my issue.
And it'll
with
be
it.
interesting.
I mean, 10 hours is 10 hours, though. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not an insignificant amount, and I
Well, especially for a
do
game
give-
that's been out for
yeah.
4 years now.
No, I think Hello
think.
Games has done a really good job of this.
Kind
The
of-
game in general.
I just realized it's kind of interesting that a lot of
Yeah.
these, the big thing with some of these games is procedural generated weather and even semi-realistic in some cases. Star Citizen, No Man's Sky, another game we play, Stormworks. That was the big update, was the weather,
Yeah,
localized
Stormworks.
weather, and it's kind of interesting how these server-based games are starting to, I guess, try to make a more realistic world with a more chaotic system being weather, of course. So it's kind of interesting. I just made that connection. That seems like the big thing for developers, is to make semi-realistic and freaking Microsoft Simulator too, realistic weather
yeah.
patterns. I mean, that takes a
Flying
lot of
through
server.
hurricanes is friggin' amazing.
That takes a lot of server.
Beautiful.
Did you actually get to do that? Have you done that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So,
Yeah.
actually, because we kind of went on a tangent there, have you heard of the new simulator game called Airplane Mode?
No.
So I looked into it just a little bit, and it's coming out October 15th, and it looks like the equivalent of Microsoft Flight Simulator, like to Goat Simulator with Airplane Mode. It looks
Are you
like,
kidding me?
It looks like it's going to be just a hilarious, insane game, like where you're dealing with sitting in the back and crying babies and whatnot. It just sounds randomly entertaining enough that I'm probably going to get it because of
That's right up there with
Air-
taking a 5-hour flight and ending up in the same place you started.
It depends. Do I
Singing
get
Baby
miles
Shark
for
all
it?
day.
I mean, that's the one thing I didn't know, and I didn't ask when I was doing my research. Is how many miles do you get when you take off?
Gotta get
and
them
then
miles,
arrive?
man. Gotta get them miles.
Yeah. So I mean,
Direct into my veins.
Okay, so on a quick Google, airplane mode is flight simulator where you play a passenger. They're going to have taxi, takeoff, landing, fairly accurate satellite imagery of your flight plan, snacks, premium beverages, and meal service, including a fish option, carry-on bag with a book, headphones, pin, and charging cable, overhead reading light, and complimentary aircraft information card, in-flight safety video produced.
That's a $5 game if I've ever seen.
Oh, God.
some of these flight safety videos are amazing, though. Like the effort the airlines put in. Like there was an Air New Zealand one where Gandalf was telling you to not pass and take your seat and stuff. And then there was this one, Hainan was like all about little teapot figurines or something that I didn't quite understand because it was very Chinese culture, and I just didn't quite get it when I was flying. And then Korean Airlines just had, like last year, they just started their new video with, I forget what group it is, but it's a really popular Korean pop group, like singing to you about like taking off and stuff while they're playing video games on the plane. Like that's very Korean. Like, so I mean,
I will admit,
some
other
of these...
countries definitely do the flight safety check a lot more interesting than what we do in this country.
Yeah, they're
from what
like
I've seen,
works of art almost. It's really entertaining. So, and then really boring when you get back to the U.S. and they're just like, meh, meh, and then.
This is a good
if you have never
you're going to
seen
die.
a seatbelt before, this is how you put a seatbelt together.
Here's how you tighten said seatbelt.
Like here's the. I
Your-
mean, every
Your
once in a while.
stupid fucking seat will float if you somehow survive falling out of the sky from 30,000 feet.
Yeah, every once in a while you get the
Woo-choo.
entertaining flight attendant that like is, you know, from Gunnison to Denver in the rare likelihood of a water landing, or my favorite is the local airport. The last one I had on Grant Aviation that's like, well, if we crash and after we crash, I'm going to ask you all to get out your cell phones for somebody to call for help.
You just casually step out of the plane.
Of course, it's
In
the
the
pilot.
unlikelihood if that the captain decides to make our flight a cruise.
Well, I've heard Southwests are actually pretty good, but yeah, I still haven't flown them yet. And yeah, they don't have miles that transfer to any airlines that I fly, so I probably won't. But I've heard they're cool. Exactly, Colton.
Well,
We learned a lot this
we've
week.
gone. I think we've gone far enough down the rabbit hole for this week. So, Colton, where can we find you?
Oh, I'm going first this time. I wasn't prepared. You can find me. I am Colton Roper. You can find me on thetechpirate.net as a contributor. You can also find me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube under the same name, Seeker4761.
That's how many different new weather effects No Man's Sky has.
It's freaking better with it. What's it, like 2 gig update? Something stupid like that? Jeez.
I don't know. Honestly, 2 gig update.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
Days
Yeah,
is
it's not
nothing.
Big anymore.
That's nothing.
true.
That's sad because the Half-Life 100 meg update back in 2000 caused me to start my patch folder.
Cody.
Yes, the almighty
Where-
patch folder.
Oh, yeah. Cody, where the hell can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on YouTube at Striving to Fail, where soon I might actually have drone videos and stuff up. Might, and maybe soon.
Do it.
Soon might be
Make it so.
Duke Nukem soon. or Star Citizen soon. Who knows? But yes.
You know, you say that every time. We're gonna just have to put a due date for you for a video.
Yeah, and then I can Chris Roberts all over that.
Oh, shots fired.
Flag on the play. 5-yard
Space.
penalty. Replay
Space
first
sim.
down.
I still love Star Citizen. I'm sorry, Chris. But yeah,
Friend of the show,
eventually I'll
Chris
have
Roberts.
something up there. Yeah, I've been disassembling drones and stuff. You can also find me on Flyer Talk as Roaming Geek. So there you go. There's a random one for you. And I'll add some other random one later.
You said that last week.
I did on Flyer Talk? Crap.
Got you good.
can find me on the Razer forums as Psycho Nitrous. There you go.
Aha.
Overwatch.
Charlie.
Zito
And
Mello.
I am Charlie Stifler Milnor on YouTube and on Twitch. I need to get streaming again. I've been slacking since having a kid. Who knew that would take some time?
It's all about priorities, Charlie.
And as long as they keep on having me, you will keep on finding me here. Brandon.
Okay. I'm Brandon, also known as Dracanis or the Tech Pirate. You can find me on thetechpirate.net. You can find me on YouTube as the Tech Pirate, and you can find me on Twitter as TTP_net, or just, search for thetechpirate.net. I haven't been doing a lot on there, but I do need to get better. And I have the unboxing video up for the Duo. I have shot and mostly gotten the Surface Duo full review written up and done. It actually went back to AT&T Monday.
Were they okay with it being shot? And what kind of penetration did it have? What kind of rounds did you use? And
I mean, it was just an airsoft rifle, so it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You didn't go like 30-06 or
No.
308 or something?
See,
Oh,
I still
okay.
wanted to return it and then not have to pay the $1,500 to keep a phone that wouldn't work.
But I would like to know, if I were to cover my body in Surface Duos, like how much protection they would provide. That's
I would
the kind
assume
of
not
reviewing
much. They're
I'm
way
expecting.
too thin and they're glass.
And I'm going to go with
But-
Hypo. Boom!
But okay, so interesting thing about the Duo. I watched Jerry Rig Everything's.
Oh, his stuff's good.
Oh,
The scratching.
I just cringe every time that he takes that razor around an edge and just.
It hurts.
It passed his bend test.
Wow.
Like, he had it closed and he was like, because of the size, most people are probably going to put this in their pocket. And you saw him, like, with it closed, just bending the hell out of it. And it did get a slight curve to it, but he could not get it to shatter a screen or break or anything. He opened it back up, and even though it was deformed a little bit, like, it still worked. Everything still worked. So, as thin as it is, it's actually...
Its size doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's all about how you use it, boys.
All about the motion of the ocean, not the size of the boat.
It's a long time to get to England in a rowboat.
And with that disappointing statement there from Charlie, thanks for joining us on this week of this. Oh, Jesus. This episode of This Week I'm Learning. I can talk, I swear. You can find us on wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as on YouTube as This Week I'm Learning. For you social media peeps out there, you can find us on Twitter at THISTWIL. If you'd like to contact us, you can send us an email at twill@thetechpirate.net. Until next week, have fun, be safe, and don't blow up in the sky.